Where did it come from? Luke's belief that Darth Vader could be brought back to the light side. Now, before I really even get into this, let me just say that this is not something that's really ever bothered me before, or something that I'd consider a plot hole or poor storytelling, or anything of that nature. I'm fine with it just being left open to interpretation, and I'd almost go so far as to say that not knowing exactly why Luke thought he could bring his father back to the light almost makes for a better story, because as far as we know, he just believed, or wanted to believe, and it was simply that belief that brought his father back. Or maybe Luke did feel the good in him, the conflict, and thought he could bring it back to the forefront. But when did he feel that conflict, or start to form the belief that he could bring his father back? Because it's interesting to note that when Luke was talking to Obi-Wan in Return of the Jedi, right after the death of Yoda, he seems to be under the impression that it was his task to kill his father. He even says to Obi-Wan that, "I can't do it, Ben. I can't kill my own father." To which Obi-Wan simply replies, "Then the Emperor has already won. You were our only hope." Now sure, this might also imply that Luke may have already been thinking about alternatives to having to kill his father, but clearly Obi-Wan either wasn't, or thought how to win this fight was something Luke needed to figure out on his own. In other words, Obi-Wan couldn't just say, "Well, you're not supposed to kill him, Luke, you're supposed to bring him back to the light," because that was a realization Luke had to make on his own, not one he could just be told because he'd never believe it, and without fully believing it, it'd never work. And we know that this is most likely the case, that Luke had to figure it out on his own, because if Yoda and Obi-Wan truly did want him to defeat and kill Vader, maybe they should have showed him how to use a lightsaber a little better. Because keep in mind the extent of Luke's lightsaber training, at least from what we've seen, was about 5 minutes aboard the Falcon against the training drone. Also, in The Empire Strikes Back when Luke goes into the dark side cave, Yoda says, "Your weapons, you will not need them." Luke takes them in anyway and uses his lightsaber to kill the image of his father, and learns what happens when he does that. He simply takes his father's place. So no, Luke was probably never supposed to kill his father, and Yoda and Obi-Wan knew this, but needed him to figure it out on his own, so that his faith would be strong enough to bring his father back. But when did he really think to himself that maybe he could pull off such a thing, that he could bring his father back? Now, as I've suggested elsewhere, perhaps Luke could meet Ahsoka at some point during the time between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and she could be the one who convinces him to try and save his father. However, as much as I and some other people like that idea, I'm not sure it's one that we'll ever see. Likely they already have plans for Ahsoka's return, though maybe, just maybe, those plans do include such an idea of her meeting Luke in this crucial time period. There is, however, someone else who knew Anakin Skywalker really well that Luke would have almost certainly met and spoken with, that being Captain Rex. Thanks to Lucasfilm recently making it official that Rex was on Endor, making him the old soldier who used to be known as Nick Sant, it means Luke and Rex would have been together on the Shuttle Tydirium on the way to Endor, and then while on the actual mission. Now, personally, I'd like to imagine that at some point on that shuttle trip, Luke is thinking quietly to himself about what he's supposed to do about his father, and Rex sees him and thinks Luke is worried about the mission, or maybe even the troops he's leading into battle, just like Anakin used to be. That's when he goes over to him and just breaks in the story, which is something I could certainly see Rex doing. "You know, your father and I were in a lot of tough situations like this, but we've always managed." And then he proceeds to tell Luke a whole story about one of their adventures that we've seen during the Clone Wars animated show. And before you ask, would Rex even know that Luke was Anakin's son? Well, I don't see why he, and pretty much everyone else, wouldn't at this point. The big secret isn't the fact that Luke Skywalker is the son of Anakin Skywalker, but rather it's that Anakin didn't die at the end of the Clone Wars and instead became Darth Vader. Now that is a secret only a handful of people know. Even if Rex didn't know for sure, he'd probably be able to put it together that another heroic Jedi with the last name Skywalker wasn't just a coincidence, and he could even go and ask Luke about it if he wanted to, or simply go up to him and say during that shuttle trip, "You know, I knew another Jedi named Skywalker once, served with him during the Clone Wars," and then go on and tell another story. Okay, so what if these stories from Rex get Luke thinking that this great Jedi his father used to be, this general who used to care so much about his troops, couldn't be completely gone, that some part of him had to be in there somewhere. And then they get to Endor, and as they approach the Star Destroyer and wait for the shield to hopefully be lowered, Luke senses his father, who clearly senses him back. Luke figures it's over, that at best they'll be caught in a tractor beam and brought on board, and at worst they'll just be blown out of the sky. He even says at this point that he's endangered the mission and shouldn't have come, but instead Vader allows the shield to be lowered and for them to get away. Now for me, this has always been the moment that Luke truly begins to believe that there could be light left in his father. Even in the movie, you could see the confusion on Luke's face about why they're being let go. Likely, it's at this very moment that Luke stretches out with his feelings and senses something different about Vader, and he feels some small glimmer of the man he used to be, the one Rex had just been telling him about. And that's when he decides that yes, he will face him again, as Yoda and Obi-Wan have told him he must become a Jedi, but he will do so only with the intention on bringing him back, not destroying him. And whether or not you want to believe that a story or two about Anakin from Rex helped Luke come to this hope or belief in his father, well, that's likely always just going to be left up to your imagination. I highly doubt we'd ever get it confirmed one way or another, but who knows? Personally, I'd love to see a comic book series about the Battle of Endor through Rex's eyes. But that's me. I'm a huge fan of Rex, and it'd be cool to know that he played some small part in bringing General Skywalker back to the good side of the fight. Still, it's pretty much a guarantee that Rex met Luke and probably spoke with him about Anakin Skywalker. It's also great to know that Rex survives all the way to Endor and hopefully beyond. If any soldier deserves a quiet, peaceful death someday, it's Captain Rex. And if Rex never shows up again in the canon after this, though I'd love to see him again maybe even in the next animated show that could take place after Return of the Jedi, we can always just imagine he went back to a well-deserved quiet life, maybe even joining back up with Wolf and Gregor. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to let me know what you think. Did Rex maybe tell some old stories about Anakin to Luke, and could those have played a small part in Luke believing in his father? Or would you rather it be just a belief Luke came to completely on his own? Let me know in the comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And if you like this video, check out some of my other videos or subscribe to my channel. If you've already done all that, then thanks for your continued support. If you want to know when I upload new videos, hit the notification button or just follow me on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching.